Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and Michael Myers. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. H4 goes back to basics as the previously dead Michael is revealed to have actually been comatose for the last 10 years. The Shape awakens to find out Laurie is dead, and he sets his sights on her daughter and his own niece, Jamie Lloyd. After confused Halloween 3 audiences clamored for more Michael Myers, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill debated on what to do with the series. They came up with a very Nightmare on Elm Street kind of story where the town of Haddonfield has banned Halloween and Michael Myers returns more as a ghost. But Mustafa Akkad rejected the script, wanting Michael to remain at least somewhat human. Realizing they were no longer in control, Carpenter and Hill decided to part ways with Halloween, and they sold the title and rights to Mustafa Akkad. With the goal of bringing the series back to basics, Akkad brought in Dwight Little to direct. Little was pretty new on the scene, having directed a couple of films like Bloodstone, but he'd go on to direct The Phantom of the Opera, Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, and The Last Rampage. Brand new screenwriter Alan McElroy, who'd go on to write Spawn, Wrong Turn, and The Marine, was brought in to write the script. McElroy loved Myers and was actually really pumped to write the script, but he only had 11 days to do so because of a writer's strike that was happening. Dean Cundey finally dropped out as cinematographer, and Peter Collister of Problem Child, Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, and Alvin and the Chipmunks picked up the camera work. Alan Howarth, who worked on Halloween 2 and 3 with Carpenter, returned to do the score. Since Laurie is dead in this sequel, Donald Pleasance is the only returning cast member, and this is where Loomis reaches his notorious level of bonkers. The role of Jamie was landed by 11-year-old Danielle Harris, who'd go on to star in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, Rob Zombie's Halloween, and Hatchet 2. Rachel is played by Ellie Cornell from Free Enterprise, House of the Dead, and Room 6. The rest of the cast includes Beau Starr from Due South, Kathleen Kinmont from Stranger in the House, and Sasha Jensen from Dazed and Confused. Stuntman George Wilbur, who has performed stunts for films like Ghostbusters, Reanimator, and Mars Attacks, came in to play Michael Myers. He actually wore hockey pads to appear bigger in the film, and I heard he often took the mask off to make sure Danielle wasn't too scared on set. The set does sound like it was pretty troubled though, with issues reproducing another Captain Kirk mask, injuries like Ellie Cornell cutting herself on a nail, and 6 hours of reshoots because nobody realized Donald Pleasance was wearing a hat in most of his scenes. Akkad decided the rough cut wasn't violent enough, and effects artist John Carl Buechler came in to add some gore. Halloween 4 hit theaters and ended up grossing around $18 million, tripling its $5 million budget and surpassing Halloween 3 money-wise. Unsurprisingly, it was not loved by critics, who generally found the series to be less and less scary as Michael became more and more superhuman. Time has been good to Halloween 4 though, and many do consider it to be one of the better sequels. It currently has a 29 and 53% on Rotten Tomatoes, so audiences are a bit more receptive to it nowadays. The Return of Michael is the start of a new chapter for the series, where it really cements itself as the marvelous misadventures of Michael. I've seen all the Halloween movies at least once or twice, but starting now is when I'll be a little bit less familiar with them as well. We better start hitchhiking to Haddonfield, because it's time to watch Halloween 4. We open on Halloween Eve, 1988, as we get a spooky rural title card and opening credit sequence. We fade to a rainy ambulance ride and enter Ridgemont Sanitarium, where Michael has been held since the second film. The Smiths Grove drivers are here to transfer him, and they get a tour of the generic crazy house. The security officer recaps Michael's Halloween massacre, and we learned Michael and Loomis survived the hospital fire. Dr. Hoffman is to see the comatose Michael out, as Dr. Loomis has been pretty negligent at his job lately. They load Myers into the ambulance and easily reach their destination. Just kidding, the attendant's simple mention of Michael's living niece wakes the sleepy bastard. He jolts up and gives the guy some headbangs and sticks a thumb drive into his brain. Now we meet teary-eyed Jamie, who sees a suspect ambulance outside. Her foster sister Rachel tries to comfort her, and we learn Jamie's parents died 11 months ago. Oh, ambulance gone. Rachel walks her to bed, but Jamie opts to look at her special memory box. Here it's confirmed that she is the daughter of Laurie Strode, and after a good cry, Jamie is visited by the Shape. Jamie's prayers are interrupted by a creaky closet, but that's just a red herring because Michael's under the bed. Hey Mikey! Jamie runs and opens the door only to find Michael already there. Turns out this was just a nightmare or hallucination or premonition as the Crothers comfort the crying child. It's the big day, and a bailing babysitter means Rachel will have to watch Jamie tonight, which she isn't too excited about. She apologizes to Jamie and they plan to get ice cream, but no trick-or-treating. There's our burnt, limping king. Loomis is pissed about Michael's transfer, but Hoffman is tired of listening to his speeches about evil. Ring ring! Yeah, Michael caused an accident. The docs rush over and Loomis is the only one who believes this was no accident. He inspects the blood-soaked ambulance and is certain he's escaped. Off to Haddonfield to fight evil! But first, Crispy Mike needs a new mechanic outfit. Good thing Louie needs gas. Whoa, I've never seen a car get filled from behind the license plate. Is that still a thing? Michael watches as Loomis heads inside, and it doesn't take the doc long to find Pinhead's wet dream of a victim. He enters the Abe Lincoln Saloon and finds a dead-ass waitress and a smashed-ass phone. Michael emerges, Loomis loses his limp, and he begs Michael to leave the people of Haddonfield alone. He fires some rounds, but Michael either teleports or jumps out of the way. It's not really clear. Michael steals his biggest vehicle yet and manages to set off a wide array of explosions to slow Loomis down. At school, Jamie is bullied by some asshole kids about her boogeyman uncle and her dead mom. Bruh, these kids are vicious. Poor little Jamie is calming down when she is picked up by Rachel and her friend Lindsay. Yes, that is in fact Lindsay Wallace. Jamie has decided she wants to go trick-or-treating after all, and Lindsay suggests they hit up the mart that Rachel's sort of boyfriend Brady works at to buy a costume. Lindsay drops them off across from that tow truck, and Brady is surprised to see her. Jamie passes a few good mask options and lands on this mediocre clown costume. Brady is pissed he won't be able to get freaky due to Jamie, and quickly starts scoping out co-worker Kelly Meeker. As Jamie imagines young Mike, Big Mike snags himself a new mask and says hello to his niece. Jamie screams and tells Rachel the Nightmare Man is here, so they all just think she was spooked by a mask or something. Y'all ain't too good at spotting shoplifters. Meanwhile, a hitchhiking Loomis is picked up by Reverend Jackson Sayer, and he's as fucking nuts as Loomis.
Yes, we'll gather at the river.
But hey, as long as you're having fun, Loomis. The Carruthers head out for a dinner meeting, and while Jamie gets dressed, a sneaky shape watches Rachel from outside. They head out and Mike heads upstairs where he confirms that Jamie is his niece. Loomis reaches the Haddonfield police where he meets Brackett's successor, Sheriff Ben Meeker. He already knows of Loomis and isn't quick to believe that Michael has returned. But Loomis' insistence and some strange phone outages scare him enough to start searching for Jamie. Jamie makes a couple friends, and all together with Rachel they're greeted by pantsless Kelly Meeker. Brady, what are you doing back there, you horny skeezy scamp? Brady makes the worst apology I've ever heard, but it lasts long enough for Jamie to wander off. The police have ordered people inside and businesses to close, and bartender Earl and his band of merry drunks decide to investigate. Loomis and Meeker arrive at the Crother house where Loomis finds the special box and poor dead Sunday. They leave a deputy to guard the place, and Michael has wandered over to an electrical plant. He launches this guy named Bucky into the shocky part, which kills him and cuts the power to basically all of Haddonfield. The streets are dark and empty now as Rachel searches for Jamie. She spots Michael from very far away and starts booking it. Good instincts, Rachel. She finds Jamie and they are found by Loomis and Meeker. Loomis notices Michael standing in the distance and then another and another. Michael hasn't mastered cloning though, it's just some jerks with masks messing with the sheriff. They head to the station, leaving behind the real Michael. Looks like Mike just came from there though, as everyone inside has been slaughtered. The rednecks arrive and demand answers, and Loomis happily shares that Michael has returned. Meeker wants them to return home, but Earl and his boys have a bit of vigilante justice in mind. Deputy Logan and Sleepy Michael leave to meet with Meeker, just as the Carruthers arrive home. The bar posse spots someone in a park, and it sounds like an old western as they shoot the shit out of some bushes. Believe it or not, Earl and his buddies are not the heroes of Halloween 4, just murderers as they've shot a local named Ted. Meanwhile, Kelly and Brady are having some firelit foreplay when her dad and the others arrive. They get dressed, sort of, and Deputy Logan arrives as well. Meeker has his pantsless daughter lock all the windows, and he arms Brady with a shotgun and gives him some advice.
Well, yeah,
catch you grope my daughter, I'll use that shotgun on you.
Uh-oh, deputy, was someone in your cruiser? They've secured the house and plan to bunker down, but a teeny tiny shape is here to test their DIY skills. Meeker manages to radio the next town over for help, and Loomis heads out to check on the Carruthers parents. Rachel and Kelly have some girl beef, and it ends with coffee on Kelly's weird cop shirt. Meeker gets word of the shooting and leaves Rachel in charge of the radio while he deals with the bar posse. Not long after, Kelly offers some coffee to Logan, only to find him crumpled up in a corner. Michael takes the shotgun and straight up rams it through Kelly's torso and the wall. Kiki, get down. Kiki, no. Kiki, get down. Get down. The state police are 35 minutes away, just in time for a final girl circuit. Here we have a crumpled cop and a bottomless wall mount. She rushes upstairs to find Jamie missing, and Brady wants to abandon her. Luckily, he thinks this door is indestructible, and they head upstairs and find Jamie, who I guess was just wandering the fuck around. Michael emerges downstairs, and Brady takes such a long time loading his gun that Michael makes it all the way upstairs and throws him against the wall. The girls run to the attic, and despite Brady's best efforts, Michael overpowers him and snaps his neck. Michael makes it past their crappy blockade and grabs himself a new chef's knife. They break a window onto the roof and they struggle to reach the top. Mike climbs up too, and Rachel uses a cable to lower Jamie to safety. Michael interferes and Rachel takes a long fall to the ground. Jamie begs Rachel not to die, but she has her own life to worry about at the moment. She runs into Loomis, who says she can't go home because it wouldn't be safe, and he has her lead him to the school. Loomis blasts the door open, setting off an alarm, and Michael's blonde twin launches Loomis through a window. Jamie runs and falls down some stairs, with Michael hot on her trail. He grabs the child, but Rachel shows up with a fire extinguisher. The rednecks hear the school alarm and actually arrive and offer to drive the girls out of Haddonfield. Earl is taking them to meet with the state police, but the cops just head to Haddonfield and send them towards a substation a few miles away. Turns out Michael has been hiding under the truck, I guess, and he quickly butchers and yeets the three guys in the back. He also breaks through the driver's side window and rips Earl's entire throat out. Rachel loses the dead weight and takes the wheel, trying to keep Michael off her. She slams on the brakes, sending Michael flying forward, and continues to slam him with the truck. Backup finally arrives, and Jamie seems to have some sort of pity or affection for her uncle, but not enough to not let him be shot to shit by a mob. Michael is blasted into a mine shaft, which is where he'll hang out until the next movie. They all go back to the Carruthers house, and while Mrs. Carruthers draws a bath, a POV grabs some scissors and dons some familiar looking eye holes. Darlene screams, and Loomis runs up to find his worst nightmare, as little Jamie is taking on the family business. This ending gets ignored in the next movie, but still pretty gutsy. And that's Halloween 4. This was actually a pretty decent sequel. I came in with pretty low expectations, but I'd say it's pretty comparable to part 2. The most effective aspect of the movie is having two protagonists that we actually grow to care about. Jamie is such a sweet, sad character, and you really don't want anything bad to happen to her. And Rachel is a smart, capable final girl, and both her and Jamie have a hell of a scream. Loomis is also becoming such a tragic character, as his obsession with Michael is taking more of a toll on him. We are on the brink of Michael being fully supernatural, but Loomis right now is about as crazy as his patient, who, as far as we can tell, is still human. A stupidly unstoppable human, but human nonetheless. Donald Pleasance chews the scenery just a bit too much here, but it is very entertaining nonetheless. While the mask is subpar, that's about my only issue with Michael. George Wilbur does a solid job, and he doesn't rely on the typical Michael Myers moves like the head tilt to do a good performance. The kills are decent. I think the added gore in the ambulance and the truck were good calls. Michael killed random people in both of his previous outings, but Bucky was the only one that was really just random, and it clearly just served to turn the lights off. The love triangle part is pretty cliche, but I do think the characters in part 4 are some of the most memorable in the franchise. No offense to Brackett, but Sheriff Meeker does a much better job protecting the town. And the drunken mob is an interesting addition, considering they are much more important to the plot than I expected. I think the pacing is pretty good. My only complaint is the movie really dawdles about an hour in. We spend like 10 minutes watching everyone hunkered down and we wonder where Michael's gonna show up, but more of in a bored way than an excited way. The ending really isn't built up to, but it would have taken the series in an interesting direction, so I wish they would have stuck with it. The movie really utilizes a specific fear that a potential child victim brings, and Danielle Harris really kills it, especially when she is lost or scared. My biggest complaint is how they killed off Laurie so unceremoniously. Like, I get bad things happen in everyday life, but damn, an unseen car crash and a mystery dad? But all in all, Halloween 4 is a pretty decent return to the series' roots. I think we are still in the better half of the Halloween sequels, which really isn't saying much though. It's nowhere near one of the best horror movies of 1988, and even comparing it to Friday Part 7 or Nightmare 4, it's pretty lackluster. But either way, it did revitalize the series, and it is a big part of why the Halloween franchise has persisted for so long. Halloween 4 successfully captures the feeling of the first two, introduces us to some solid new characters, and possibly manages to be the second scariest so far. If you like the Halloween franchise, you probably like the return of Michael Myers, but I can't say that so confidently about Revenge. But before we continue the Thorn trilogy, we'll be looking at a patron request, and it's one I've never seen before. Next week we'll be watching 1998's Dark City. Thank you all for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Halloween 4. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with my weekly horror reviews. And if you want to help support the channel further, be sure to check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.